business tips to successfully start and run your business so your business doesn't run you. And more importantly, we provide personal development tools to create a better version of yourself to provide the solid foundation for your life and business to stand upon. This is the Biz Reveal, and I'm your host, Craig Sawyer. This week's guest is author, motivational speaker, and business coach, Haleem Washington. An Amazon best-selling author, award-winning photographer, and inspirational motivational speaker, Jay is an inspiration to aspiring entrepreneurs. He tells his story of Felon to Phenom and his dedication to his hustle and will to be everything he knew he could truly be. This is the Biz Reveal podcast with this week's guest, Haleem Washington. I know that you do a lot of different things. You do that, you've authored a couple books. You're a motivational speaker. You do business coaching, things like that. So, tell me about, you did start from adversity, right? I mean, that's kind of your story, that you started from adversity to accomplishment. So tell me a little bit what that journey was. What was that for you?
Oh, man. How much time do you really have? No, I mean, I come from Newark, New Jersey. And when we were growing up, Newark was always one of the worst cities for crime and violence, drugs, all that other stuff like that. And my family was no exception. I grew up in a household. My grandmother had 8 children. 7 out of the 8 were strung out on drugs. So, I'm the first grandchild. So I came from that. And, my mom was one of those individuals, but, worked hard, lived that kind of double life thing. Like, hey, I wanted to go to school, did what I needed to do. I was an athlete. But I, was in the street when school was over. I squeaked my way out of New Jersey to college, but that same attitude kind of followed me. So, I started entrepreneurship because of that. I was kind of, I've been in the street, but I'm in school. So I was trying my hand at some other things, but I still got in trouble. And I became a felon while I was in school. But I ended up graduating school, great grades and things of that nature. But because of that, I couldn't get that job that, that's promised to you because of my background. So because I had that hustle mentality, I just went ahead and went into full-time entrepreneurship. And it was rough. A lot of times, not having that job, I teach that. I say, please go get the job. Don't just jump out like I had to. But trust me, jumping out and still having to pay student loans and all that other stuff. I would have loved to have the job first and then be able to do that. But I teach people to get the job first, learn all the skills you need to learn on their dime, allow them to get you certifications. All my certifications I had to pay for out of pocket. A lot of people go to work and they pay for them, make the connections, do all that other stuff, and then come out into your business. Right. They always give the statistics wrong. They'll say 99% of businesses fail. It's 99% of businesses with inexperienced owners fail. But it's 85% of businesses with experienced owners succeed.
So it's just about having a path, like having a plan to get there, and don't just dive into something thinking it's going to work out. There's got to be some type of training. You got to walk before you run, right?
Yeah, you gotta know, what you're doing, in the marketplace. A lot of people just see something, and a lot of times we make business decisions off of the people that surround us, and then we find out that they're not really going to be our customer base, and then we lost. So all your family's telling you make the best fried chicken or your apple pie is the greatest, and then when you go out into the world and other people don't really think like your parents or your family think, and you're stuck. You took out your 401k and went to the apple pie when what you took out your 401k, you've been doing this for 10 years. You know this in and out. So why haven't you tried that business? That's the thing that you know the most of. And that's what I saw a lot of people do over my years. And, and I try to tell people, hey, go this route, because my route, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Well, maybe I would, but not on somebody.
Maybe on the worst one. What was your drive? What was your drive back when you were going through that struggle of trying to get where you are now? Because it's a conscious thing. It's a conscious decision to try to get somewhere in most cases. What was that drive that kept you moving?
At first I didn't take it as serious as I thought I should have. It was just, I love to hustle. I love to grind. I love to always have some money, things of that nature. But then when I got married, and now I have to provide for a wife, that was a faith piece. And my drive turned into a faith-based piece. And then when I had kids, that was a whole different situation. It was more of my legacy at that point,
right.
That's how it started changing, because I had plenty of opportunities to give up. I always talk about how you can just go off of the last 12 years, you're looking at, 12, 13 years, you're looking at the recession came in, and I'm living in DC at that time, running a commercial cleaning business. We had to pack up. My wife lost a 6-figure job working for the Democratic Leadership Council because they closed. The person who was running that, his name is Bruce Reed. He took a job to be with our now president, who was the vice president then, to be his chief of staff, and he let everybody go. Oh. My wife is an office manager, so she was no exception. And so she's working on Capitol Hill. Here I am running a business. My daughter's just born, and here we are. We have to go ahead and make decisions. So I had to sell off my business in pieces to make sure we can be okay, come back south, and then we get the ball rolling on my media company. And 5 years later, here we have a 1,000-year flood here in South Carolina. And, so
can't win, right?
And so we're trying to work that out. And then next thing you know, after the 1,000-year flood, now years later, we're in this pandemic. But as I told people, the first thing I ran away from the adversity when it came down to the recession. The flood, I stood tall. And then when the pandemic came, I was in position to actually help other individuals.
And it's cool because it is the adversity that builds us into wiser people, right? That's why, as we age, become wise, right? And we're the all-knowing, and we never know what's going on. I don't care what age you are. You're like, man, I was an idiot when I was 20. And then when you're 30, you're like, I was an idiot when I was 25. And then when you're 40, you're like, I was an idiot when I was 30. You're continuously progressing. And I think that, yes, in fact, I was listening to another podcast earlier today. And of course, the big topic right now is always going to be this dang pandemic, right? And when's it going to end? And, I hate when people say the new normal, right? But it's going to change the way we live forever. Now, this may not be the new normal, but this is going to create the new normal. And it's because of the adversities. And that's why I love your stories, because, we all have a story. We all have that background. We all have our own adversities that we have to go through. So I think the specific ones aren't necessarily as important as the adversity itself and how you climb out of it. And that's the story that makes us who we are, because some people don't climb out of it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of people don't. And that was one of the reasons why, I started going down the path of training and teaching, because I know it was a whole lot of people like me. I mean, I have friends who, went the same route and wasn't as fortunate. I'll be perfectly honest and transparent. I did way more than I was arrested for years ago, right, when I was, 21 years old, 20 years old when I got arrested. And I know friends who did not even a quarter of what I did, and they immediately went to jail for 3 years, 5 years, first offense. And I'm like, that could have been me. I haven't been in trouble since. I'll be 40 this year, so going on 20 years since I've been arrested. But I literally thank God for that. And I say, well, they don't have the hustle that I have. They come home and they're miserable. They're not working. They're trying to figure it out. I'm like, well, let me show them what I had to do. Because when I came back south, I had to take an $8 an hour job. Right. Why? Because of the background still popped up. Okay, well, they're not going to question about the guy who did give an $8 job. But if I wanted the 401k and all that other stuff, they're going to run me through the system immediately. And so that's how it went while I was building up this business here in my media company. And so that's what I tell people to do. Go ahead to work. Go do what you need to do. I had my second child was being born. Well, my wife was pregnant with him at the time. And I'm like, okay, so I got a small kid. She's pregnant with my son, and she's not working because nobody's trying to hire this woman that has this big old belly right now. Right. And so I got to figure it out. So I had to take an $8 an hour job while I'm taking photos. I'm doing this. I'm I used to drive a college friend of mine. He had a dealership. I would go and drive cars from the auction with him for $100 a day. So whatever I had to do while I was getting my stuff together, I did it without going back that direction. So I just try to put that story in front of individuals like that so they can know, okay, yes, it's going to take a little bit more time and a little bit more of your effort because you see what you can get in a couple minutes, but it doesn't last. And this is long lasting. I made great relationships doing all of those things. And it helped my business flourish once I got in position.
It's amazing what happens, though, how much you can achieve when you're put in a situation where you have to, right? Because right now, if things are comfortable and you're like, man, I just want to make an extra $5,000 this week. Are you going to do it? I mean, you could. But if you are just dead broke and you know that if you don't have $5,000 by the end of the week, you won't have a home, you won't have a job, your family's going to be taken away from you, everything's in dire straits, all of a sudden you figure out a way to get that $5,000. And I think that that's very important for all of us to remember, not just business owners, but just people in general. When you have to, when you've got no other choice, the things that you can do, right? When you quote unquote have no other choice, you do. There's always choices. They may not be choices you like, but they are choices, and you can do amazing things. You said something a second ago too, about like, talking to other people and getting them, to do these things. Inspiration, motivation. I was in management for almost 20 years, and in the Marine Corps. And one of the hardest things about leadership is motivation and inspiring people, which I think is even better because I think managers motivate, leaders inspire, right? So how do you inspire somebody, first of all? How do you do it? Are there methods to it? And can everybody be inspired?
Yeah, I think everybody can be inspired. I don't think everybody can be motivated, because the motivation is something that comes from within, and you definitely have to have it. You can try to plant a seed, but you can't bleed blood from a turnip. So if they don't have that in them, you can't strike that match for them. But inspiration, is by you. A lot of times, everybody can be from their pockets of the world, but when it comes to inspiration, everybody's from the show me state. Everybody want to see, why should I be inspired by you? And that's why I put my story out there. That's why I wrote both of my books, because I was like, okay, well, let me tell individuals. I started, I Won't Starve, which is my nonprofit. It was just a workshop. It was my mantra first. Then I created a workshop to teach people, hey, look, let me tell you how I did it. These 5 steps, how to hustle while you work. Because again, I fell back to the bottom and I went and took this $8 an hour job, and people that's frowned upon. People are saying, I'm not doing that. Yeah, I clean toilets. I didn't stay there. I mean, I had a 50-cent raise in the first 30 days, but that wasn't the point. When I left the job, I was making about $15, $16 an hour. So that wasn't the case where I stayed there, but I took it and I worked. I was the first one there, the last one to leave from my position. I kept doing more work than I had to. I worked for a hotel. I was literally brought in as what you call a houseman, but they'll call me to do maintenance work because the maintenance guy will be somewhere else because they got multiple, the owners have multiple hotels. So the main guy will be someplace else. I mean, I could change a light bulb, right, or I can do this fixture. And I go to my boss and say, hey, man, listen, when the guy's name was Fred, I said, when Freddie's gone, I do a lot of this stuff, man. You can just put me in there. He said, okay, so what you want? Give me $9. Right. Okay, no problem. So now, I'm raising my own salary in the process, and I'm showing them, hey, I'm going to do it. Christmas time come up, I'm staying there helping them put the Christmas tree, cleaning up after everything. I get there earlier. I'm doing more work and just being busy in the right positions. And so I ended up doing that. When I left the job, I was on the front desk. Here it is, a felon that if they would have background checked me beforehand, they wouldn't let me deal with the money. Right. But now I'm the person counting the money at the end of the night. So, and had no issues. I mean, the system is what the system is. And it's been 20 years since I've been in trouble, but it still works that way. But it was because of my work ethic that got that put to the side. Yeah. And I just try to teach them that in the humbleness, like somebody like me who had a 6-figure business in my 20s and doing all this other stuff, I had to humble myself and say, I'll take this. I remember my daughter telling me, Dad, if you ever go back to work, go ahead, but just don't work at night. Because she hated me working overnight, and I hated her coming to see me at work when my wife bring me lunch and I got a vacuum cleaner in my hand.
Right.
That was you had to take that pill. But when someone else can understand that when you're talking to them and they say, wow, I was in that position too, that's inspiration. They can see, hey, this is what's going on. Motivation is like church. They bring you to church, they hoop and holler, they get you to come up and I'm joining the church, and you run outside back to the devil with nothing to take with you.
Right.
And that I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that when we created our workshop. I wanted to make sure that they got a word from me, but I had my community partners there that they can help them turn their life around that day.
And it's not quick. A lot of people are looking for that quick answer, that golden ticket. I'm in sales, and everybody wants to know the magic, the silver bullet, right? What is it that you do that makes you succeed? Like it's one thing, and if I tell you, all of a sudden, poof, the next morning you're going to be a success. It's not. It's trial and error. You fumbled your way through it. It's not like you had a guide, right? But I think it's just having that drive within to want to be more than you are. And I've spoken to a couple people throughout the course of doing this podcast who are like life coaches. And we kind of got a little deep on some of those things too, which is, it's awakening. And like you said, it's humbling. But when you never feel like you're in the place that you want to be, that could go two different directions. Like I'm never happy with, and let me rephrase that. I'm happy where I am, but I want to be more. And I think that's that hustle that you're talking about. It's like, yeah, this is great. I just achieved that. Boom. Let me hit the next step. This isn't enough. I know I can do more, and then all of a sudden you hit that goal and then you want to do more. You've got to have that drive that pushes you forward. And it's not about not appreciating where you currently are, because 10 years ago, I never would have thought I'd be where I am now. Like never would have crossed my mind in a million years. I've been fortunate, but it wasn't like it just happened upon me. I've worked a lot of hours. I've sacrificed a lot, but I didn't sacrifice so much that I couldn't be proud of how I got to where I am. Yeah. And I think that gets lost sometimes too. And you'll see that a lot with, CEOs of major corporations or entrepreneurs who have built their business from the ground up. And, they tell you the stories of how they weren't there for their children when their children were, growing up and they missed out on all that because you can't get that back. So I wanted to make sure that, and with your story too, like you said, with your daughter, she didn't want you to work at night, and if she wakes up in the middle of the night, she has a bad dream, and she wants daddy, you want to be there. So there are certain sacrifices. You have to know where your line's at. What sacrifices are you willing to make, but you have to be willing to make some. Still talking about the motivation thing. When it comes to like entry-level employees, like the $8 an hour employees. I used to manage, for example, a 7-Eleven for a couple of years. Motivating somebody at a convenience store, making $8.25 an hour can be tough, right? Yeah. Making them feel like what they do is important. It is very difficult because everybody who works there is important. Otherwise, they wouldn't be working there. I wouldn't hire you, right? I wouldn't be paying you money and paying you benefits and everything.
Of all the ways that we take care of those that we love, the most important is providing the care they need when they need it most.
Sawyer Health Solutions. Go to SawyerHealthSolutions.com for a free health insurance quote. How do you get people who are entry level, regardless of their background? They don't have to be, former felons. They don't have to, come from, a poor background, but just people who are working an entry level job. You got to start somewhere. How do you motivate them to feel like they are important to not only that location that they're working in, but to the overall corporation and the overall scheme of things? How do you make them feel like they're important and motivate them to feel that way?
I think it's a two-part scenario. First thing, when hiring, I want to know what you want. Because a lot of times we push on to them what the company wants and what the company expects out of you. I need to know what you want first. And so if I find out that you want something that we can provide you, the second thing is I'm going to keep that in front of you. And that's how it is. So let's just say that they're entry level, but the position they really want is 3 steps ahead. That person that's 3 steps ahead, I'm going to keep them in front of them. I'm going to keep them in their eye view so that they can actually see that they can be there. And I'm going to keep reminding them that this is you if you do X, Y, and Z. Because again, motivation comes from within. There's nothing I can give you that's going to motivate you. It might can inspire you, but what you really want, I got to tap into that. And a lot of entrepreneurs, CEOs, bosses do not, they just say, hey, this is what this company wants. This is what you need to do for us.
Right.
And instead of finding out what they want. And then if it coincides with the company, okay, I can go ahead and put that in front of you. And that's your goal. But
now
I gotta
you
let you know that you can actually attain that goal.
Yeah, now you know a path that you can put them on to get them to where they want to go. Now they have a plan.
Exactly.
And a purpose that goes with that plan.
Definitely. And then they start to buy in at that point, and then they start to actually have their own vision within the vision of the company. And that's what you kind of want. Like, how do you see yourself in this company? Well, I see myself at VP. Okay, fine. Well, I'll tell you. Okay, Tom is at VP right now. It took him 5 years to get there. You know, do you have 5 years to make it here? You know, then now you start putting time frames on it. Now they can start putting a plan. You working with them. Okay, and Tom, I'll bring Tom in there. Hey, Tom, you know, how did you like it at this part? Because Tom started there too. That's a big deal too. Tom started here. In 5 years, he was here.
Right.
You understand? So they're like, okay, now they're watching you because they're like 5 years. I need to see, but they might hit it faster. They might say, you know what? Well, Tom did it in 5. I did it in 4, and that's a great deal. But you got to give them some leg room to be able to create a vision within your vision.
Is that something that you ask people like when you're doing the hiring? You know, is that part of the hiring process where you're like, okay, hey, you know, what are your expectations? And what, I guess it probably maybe a different way of phrasing that whole where do you see yourself in 5 years question that we all hate.
I'm hands on with that because again, my assistant who set this up with you,
mm-hmm.
you know, I met her with writing, you know, she's a writer. And so I make it my business to make sure that she's still able to do writing workshops for herself as well as making extra money, you know, because she has to be happy. And so she gets to use our whole office facility to do what she needs to do on off time because we're closed at a certain time. So it's like, okay, well, you need to have something on a Saturday, go ahead.
All right. So
that you can continue doing what you need to do. Because if she's happy, then she's going to do what she need to do for me. She didn't have to pay $500-$600 to rent a space out, find all this stuff. And we have everything here anyhow. So you go ahead and take care of that because that's what she wants to do. What she does doesn't affect what we do. So I wanted, hey, how can I make you happy? You know, yes, we traveled prior to COVID. We traveled all the time. But
back when we all
traveled
used to travel
all the time. That was fun part of the job and those perks and all that stuff. But that's what comes with working with me. But what do you get out of it for you? And that was something I wanted to make sure that was still there in place for her.
And you know what? And I like that because that gives her a purpose outside of you. You know, something that she can focus on for herself. We all have jobs, you know, and some of us have better jobs than others. They give us more freedom, right? I mean, it's just a fact of life. But when you do have a job where you're working for somebody, you know, whether it's for a CEO, for a manager, for your supervisor, for that company, then you start feeling like it's a job, you know, because you're working for somebody else. What about working for me? So that kind of gives her the for me part.
Yes.
You know, she's got to make a living. You know, we got to have a job. We got to be able to pay the mortgage and, you know, the car payments and all that stuff. But what's that doing for her as a person? So I think that's great that she has that external and you're helping her do that. So the for you part is also helping for her using the resources that you already have available. I think that's fantastic. And that certainly builds loyalty, you know?
That's what you want. You know, a lot of times if you take a minute, they're not really in competition with you.
Right.
They just want to do what they want to do. You know, like I have skills. You know, I work with cameras. She doesn't know how to do that stuff. So why? It's not stopping me from doing what I'm doing. You know, I train. Like she doesn't have the certifications I have. Like it's not stopping me from doing anything. She's my personal assistant, and her work is where it's supposed to do. She's doing what she's supposed to be. So why not? You know, why not support her and make her life easier as opposed to making it more complicated?
Right. And you did say something about her and writing and just going on the writing thing. You have 2 books.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the 2 books.
That's how we met, actually, because I needed somebody to help me with the books. Well, the first one, anyhow. And, you know, I went through about 4 people before I got with her. And I literally was about to let the book go. I said, don't worry about it. I just need you to work with me now. I got some other things to do. But she said, no, I want to help you get this book done. And I didn't let her go after that. But my first book, again, I Won't Starve, that's my mantra. When I did leave that job that I talked about, everybody was saying, wow, you're just getting back on your feet. You got your family. You had a hard enough time. Why would you leave the job? I went to a TD Jakes conference, and he's very theatrical. So he brought a whole lion out on stage.
A little theatrical?
Yes, right. And he said that was his book. If you read his books, he had a book called Instinct out at the time. And he was talking about this lion was raised in his cage. It never been out of a cage. And he said, well, so why do we feel like we still got to have him caged up if that's all he knows? They said, if you let him out this cage, his instinct is going to kick in and remember that he's a lion. And he said that's somebody in this audience. And everybody who came with me came to me and said he was talking to me. And while he said it to me, I was crying because I felt it too. But it's just that everybody around me knew. They could have said, he's talking to me, but they said, he's talking to you. And a couple months later, I had my office. And then a couple months after that, I left the job. I already knew because I've done it before. And in bigger markets, bigger things, I just, was just trying to play it safe. And, I adopted this mantra. I said, I won't starve. If I go out here, I understood that I built a platform. One of my quotes is the platform you leap from is more important than the platform you land on. And meaning if you create a certain level of platform, it's not going to matter where they put you. You'll be able to survive. You think about these parents. We heard the story where parents was paying $200,000-$300,000 to get their kids in certain colleges.
Right.
It costs more than that. I mean, it's more than the tuition. But they understood that if they got them kids in a certain college, it would have created a platform for them that they could go wherever they wanted to go. And I understood that I had enough equity built up as an entrepreneur to go ahead and do it. So I knew I wouldn't starve. I knew I'd be all right. I knew my kids would be fine and my family would be okay. But other people couldn't see that vision. And that's the curse of visionaries. We get a chance to get teleported 10 years ahead to see something amazing. And then the good Lord is in his infinite wisdom and his sense of humor puts you right back down at the bottom of the steps.
Right.
And say, okay, now climb the ladder to get to what you just saw. And so you have this vision, and sometimes you want to say, why you even show me that? Because you see this greatness and then you got to go back down to all the crap and you got to kind of go back out to it. So it's kind of funny
because it doesn't mean anything if it comes easy. Easy come, easy go. And when you got to work for it, because look, if you scratch off a ticket and you win $5 million, that's pretty awesome. But I guarantee you that $5 million is going to get spent really, really quickly and probably not in a very wise way. Whereas if you spend 15 years of your life struggling, scratching, clawing, getting an hour and a half of sleep a night for 10 years, you get that $5 million. I guarantee you're going to treat that $5 million like $5 million, So I think it's like you said, it is kind of a God's little cruel sense of humor. But at the same time, I hate talking on those little motivational quotes, but everything happens for a reason. And if it's too easy, you take it for granted. When you get it and you feel how good it feels, man, it feels good. And then you lose it. You're like, no, I want to feel that again. It's almost like being a drug addict, right? I mean, they're always looking for that next high, and entrepreneurs are the same way. It's just luckily our high in most cases is healthier, not in all cases, but that high of achieving it. And then once you achieve it, man, it feels good and you want to achieve something else and you just keep on moving. And I think that if the people who haven't felt that high, man, if we can get them to feel it one time, it's addictive, man. It is so addictive because you want it again and again and again and again, and you want to feel that sense of achievement. Going backwards just a little bit, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but when things were bad for you, right? When you were like around 20, when you're trying to build it back up, what can you name? And I know this is going to be tough. Can you name 3 things that motivated you? What were the 3 things that pushed you forward, launched you forward? I know you had that drive, you got that hustle in you. What were the things that were in your head?
Oh man. So again, I was just playing around as a kid. I came down here, to South Carolina from Jersey. I'm from Newark, so that's like a big city right outside of New York City. So I'm a city slicker. So, I'm having a good time, and I was hustling, got in trouble. And what happened was I had a public defender, and she started talking about, first thing she said was, okay, well, we probably can get, I was facing 10 years in prison. Said, we can probably get you about 5. You only had to do 3. But the first thing you had to do is quit school. That's when the light bulb went off. That was the only reason I was in South Carolina. And I'm the first in my family to go to college. Out of my grandmother's 8 kids, 2 of them graduated high school. 7 was strung out on drugs. I can't go back. I'm not going back. Yeah. I have to do what I have to do. So I let her go immediately. And so that was the first rude awakening, saying, okay, I got to finish school. Then I met with a real lawyer and started talking about these real numbers. And I said, okay, well, I got to figure that part out. And so, those are the things. It was school after that wasn't so fun for me at that point. It was just like, how do I stay out of prison as well as get good grades, because I'm done with everything else that's going on. It's not fun anymore. Let's just go ahead and do what you need to do. I got the best grades I ever got my last couple years of college, high 3.5, 3.8, whatever. And then, I, by the grace of God, didn't have to do any time, but I was down a bunch of money. And so I was just totally focused. So that's what got me there. But once I got, did everything I needed to do with my wife, I got to say her, because, I met her in college at 19. And she just came from a different side of the track. She's from suburban DC, 2-parent home, married, everything like that. And she never judged me. She never judged me not one time. She always said she saw this guy, even when she saw the 19-year-old that she met, from New Jersey, talk like it, all everything, every stereotype you want to make, that was me. But she saw this guy now. At that time, I don't know how. So once I got past all that stuff, I proposed to her. And when I got married to her, I was like, okay, I'm going to stay on this path. And I agree with what you said prior to this. It seemed like everything happened for me so easily once I decided that route. I mean, I went and my business just catapulted when we went to DC. And when I came back here, I tell people all the time, I said, every dollar we get, we earn it here. I said, if I said I wanted a certain type of contract, I just got it in the next couple months. Not here. Every chance I get, they make me fight, scratch, and crawl and do everything to get whatever I need to get. But those were some of the 3 motivators right there. Finishing school, because that was the only reason I couldn't go back without that degree. And it wasn't like anybody would have forced me to. I just felt that in me, staying out of prison, and then my wife.
Copper Coast Gourmet Coffee. When fresh matters, we deliver it from the fields to the roasters and into your cup. CopperCoastGourmetCoffee.com.
I think it's important that you brought up your wife, because it doesn't have to be a significant other. It doesn't have to be, a spouse. It doesn't have to be children. But I think in almost every case, there is another person who brings the best out of you, because you don't see everything of yourself, right? It's so easy for us to take those negatives about ourselves. I'm guilty of this on an hourly basis every day. I see all my faults, hate them all. But if it wasn't for those faults, I wouldn't have all the other good things either, because when I see all those faults, I want to overcome them. And that's how we change as people and everything. But sometimes it takes somebody else to see it in us. And stay with that woman. I'm telling you, man, stay with that woman. She saw it that early, when you were in that deep at that time. She saw that. That's special, man. You got to keep that. So, we all need that one person to believe in us.
20 years, 15 this year, married, 20 together, it'll be 21 years together. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know, I had no, and I tell people all the time, I had no entrepreneurs in my family. She doesn't. Well, she does. She has one, her aunt, but that wasn't it. I believe that was a God thing, and that was me, experimenting in the street, doing things that I didn't have any business doing. But that was what was there.
Right.
That was what was there. Again, I didn't have too many people around that was, doing the right thing.
We are a product of our environment. I mean, you become what you're around, and that's just human nature. And sometimes it takes a lot of effort to bust through that and to acknowledge it first. That's the hardest part, is acknowledging that, and when I was raising my son and he was little and I was a single parent and I had to try to teach him all the important stuff in life, right? When they're 5 years old. And, I don't think he was 5 when I taught him this, but, if you're the best person in your group, you're in the wrong group.
Yeah.
You need to find a better group that you can, strive to be better. Because otherwise, you're going to become that group. Look, you can be a preacher, but if you hang around prostitutes every day, people are going to relate you to that type of life. You know what I mean? So you have to break away from that. And it's hard, because the first thing you got to do is, one, realize it. And then two, you got to be strong enough to actually do it. And it is tough to be strong enough to actually do that. Before we go here, I want you to tell me about, you have the 2 books. Give us the titles of the 2 books and where we can go to get them.
Well, I Won't Starve is the first book. Again, that is my, story from coming when I came to South Carolina after the, with the Great Recession up until about 2017, when I created I Won't Starve, the company. And just telling, our story, again, we were in a real bad way. We came here, again, she had a major job. She's an accountant. She's an MBA. But we both were eating, they're not groceries from Harvest Hope. So where you are, it might be Salvation Army, but here's Harvest Hope. And cars repossessed, everything like that, to where we are now. And You Won't Starve is the next book, and it's Key Principles of Entrepreneur Development. It's basically sharing, what I share in my workshop, but everybody can't take me home with them. They only get the workshop for a short period of time.
Right. So
it was a training manual. At the end of it, you got it's like a 30-question assessment just to see where you are. But just talking about, 5 principles that I've shared with everybody, and that's talking about hustling while you work, doing business on your own level. Market research, learning how to network properly. I call it being the cheese, and also strategic partnerships. That's how I got to where I am. Again, I did go to work. That job helped me tremendously. They saw my skills with a camera when we used to have these military training courses that would come and they would stay at the hotel for 6 to 8 weeks. So from all over the country. So one time they ransacked they tore it up. Every room they were in, they was like bad. And they had these cameras that they didn't know how to use, these high-tech cameras that they didn't know how to use. Luckily, one of the housekeepers was like, hey, Jay knows how to use a camera. He's a photographer. And they didn't know this. And so he's like, you're a photographer? Now I'm mopping the floor. They bring me over there. I know how to use this camera like a whiz. Now, the rest of my day, I'm taking pictures of all these rooms. Because about 70% of the occupancy was them. So this is a bunch of rooms. And I documented it, got it right to them, everything like that. I don't know how much money I made them. But they looked at me different at that point, And it was like, wow, I didn't know you did. So, they asked me a lot of questions. What do I do with the photography and things of that nature? And then some years ago, it was just a funny story. I saw my boss, the owner of the hotel. My daughter swims in the same place as his grandchild. And so he asked me what I was doing. And I told him I was running a media company. He said, you always talked about that. And he told me that, he was proud and congratulations and things of that nature. So that was kind of cool.
Very cool.
But, that's what we talked about in that book. I worked. And then I did my thing on the side. And then I started where I was. That's what doing business on your own level. A lot of people, I speak all the time with bankers, and they come to these classes and they talking over everybody's head. Well, if you got a valuation of this or $50,000 and you go get on, I like, these people don't know nothing about that. I say they got $500 in the bank account. How do you tell them to make that work? They can't do that. And so that's where doing business on your own level. Of course, market research. You got to know who you're working with and who you want to serve. My being the cheese scenario, I actually got the phrase from Gary Vee. Everybody knows Gary Vee.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a wine expert. And he used to talk about that portion when I used to listen to him back in the day. And talking about how the people in the wine festival, and I've been to some where you always find cheese at a wine festival. And so you might not buy wine from the other person, but everybody who's selling wine is going to buy cheese.
Right.
And so that was a part of my business thing, because everybody wanted to take pictures of weddings and families and everything like that. I wanted to go corporate. And so here I am with a table at a DOT function with all these businesses trying to get DOT contracts. And I'm the photographer, like, hey, here, look at me. But it wasn't DOT at first. It was everybody that was there booking me. And then I ended up working for DOT. I ended up working for, it's not a municipality in the state of South Carolina almost that I haven't worked for, as far as major municipalities, schools, all the colleges I worked for, some everywhere. So it started for me just putting myself in that situation where everybody was my customer. Nobody was my competition.
See, and people think a lot of times that luck comes into play. Oh, well, but he had that situation where nobody knew how to work the camera and he did. That was just luck. No, it wasn't, because the situation was there, but you could have just as easily walked away from the situation. So it wasn't luck. Yeah, you created that situation to be beneficial to you because you took action on it. And do I believe in luck? I don't know. I think I do believe in luck, which isn't really luck. It's just situations that are positive as opposed to situations of bad luck as situations that are negative. But taking advantage of a situation that's presented to you and creating something from it, that's not luck, man. That's hustle.
Yeah. And just being willing to tell people, having those conversations that you think that, was falling on deaf ears. I had at that particular point, I hadn't taken any pictures of anybody at the job. It would just be, water cooler talk. Right. Or, wow, man, I'm tired. Oh, what you do last night? Were you partying? No, man, I had to shoot an event. Oh, okay. And, oh, you shoot what? Are you a photographer? One young lady said, is that something you just tell girls? I said, I ain't know people do that.
Is that a thing? Because I might get in on that.
yeah. Like for me, I didn't want to take pictures. I got into media years ago to do interviews and blogging and that type of thing. I interviewed major celebrities, so I wanted to continue doing that. But there's no celebrities here in South Carolina like that, and so I had this camera and I needed to feed my family. So I said, hey, I got to do it, and I took it seriously and got good at it. But I was an entrepreneur first. So there's a lot of artists who don't make money off of their art because they're more focused on the art portion and not the business side. And I approached it like a businessman. When I went ahead on and got an office, I got my office 2 blocks away from the State House. Now, where I live in Columbia, this is one of the most political town in the state. And, South Carolina is one of the bigger primary states. So, right by the State House, you're around all the business individuals. So I invested because that's the people I wanted to be my customer base, understanding market research, where they are. I went after lawyers because we have a huge law school right here in the city. We have 400 law firms in this small city. So I went after lawyers, so it's just like, it was the business mind of me. It didn't matter what I was doing as a photographer. I just catapulted from the regular run-of-the-mill, oh, he takes pictures of this or this, to where people fly me from different places all over the country to do work. So that was just a different thing. I'm not the glamour person who's out with all the supermodels. No, I'm at this huge function in, San Diego with these politicians that, from this place. That's me. I'm that guy.
Right.
I've been that guy through my career. And we've been able to just take it to other levels. But, me speaking, teaching, and training was just me wanting to give back to the individuals that didn't have a platform. Because here, this is one of the worst states for entrepreneurship. Really? And I again, doing that research, South Carolina falls like number 45, 46 when it comes to entrepreneurship. So it's a need for this type of training. And so, again, it was always calculated. I wanted to do it, but I'm like, okay, well, they actually need it here. So let me go ahead and create that opportunity.
There's always a niche. You just have to research to find the niche and then create the situations to be able to fill the niche. Yeah, you're very wise when it comes to finding those niches. I mean, that process is very smart. Man, you're like the epitome of the rags to riches story, like not necessarily the financial sense, but in the societal sense, like, getting yourself from a bad place and bringing yourself up into a place that has it's like endless opportunities. So that's commendable, man. That's commendable. And I think that's very special. And I'm glad to hear that somebody like you is actually able to share their story with so many other people too. Don't keep it to yourself. spread the word.
Not at all. The riches are coming too. They're on the way. So, the riches are,
You're darn right
the
they
riches are on the way. Things are well. I like to speak that into existence, and, we've been able to do extremely well, even with the pandemic. We've just been teaching. A lot more people have been calling about teaching and training. I've done a lot of work with the local libraries here. I've been working with some universities all over the country. Just starting to talk. So that portion to training and things of that nature, we're working on more books, so that's coming. My daughter wrote a book last year during the pandemic. So, that's been a great situation about bullying. She witnessed a friend of hers being bullied. And so she wanted to create what she called an anti-bullying club. The school didn't really take it seriously. So I said, your dad has a business and we can do it for you. And she did it. And she wrote her first book. It'll be the first of 3. And so we're just trying to build something significant here. And it's been working out tremendously. So we're just excited about it. And we're just trying to bring more and more people in and help more and more people out. We tipped over 500 businesses as far as helping in the area get started. So
amazing.
We're going.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And you guys are sharing the wealth, and it's helping other people. It's not a greed thing where it's only helping, serving yourselves, And your daughter, that's special too, man. Like she's wanting to help other people, and I think that's where it starts because that gives you the drive, and it's something that's going to be deep inside. So it's going to be real and it's going to last. That's amazing, man. Yeah. Hey, look, I've had a blast chatting with you, man. I've learned a lot, and I think there's going to be some future conversations coming up. I would like to chat with you again soon, but for today, that's all the time we've got for. Thank you so much for joining us, Jay. I really appreciate it, man. I appreciate
you, man. Thank you. And the answer about the books, they're anywhere books are sold. So on my website, jhaleem.com, you can get them, of course. That's why I get paid the most. But I Won't Starve is everywhere. Walmart, everywhere. But You Won't Starve is catching up to him. And so it's pretty much everywhere. It's just not in Walmart yet. I'm trying to work on them to get that.
Very cool.
Yeah. So,
Very cool.
Anywhere you can get books, you can find the books.
Okay. Jay, thank you so much, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a good one, man.
Thank you for joining us this week. Go to our website at thebizreveal.com to catch all of our past episodes. We're available on all podcast apps, or you can watch any of our episodes on the Biz Reveal YouTube channel. I'm Craig Sawyer, and this is the Biz Reveal. Till next time.